Welcome to The Big Break Show, a podcast where we discuss short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, life, mindset, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Rafa Loza and Jesse Vasquez.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Big Break Show. I am here with my co-host, Mr. Jesse Vasquez, and today I want to let you guys know really quick that this is the second time we recorded this intro because Jesse forgot the episode number. With that being said, Jesse, what episode is this, buddy?
I did. You know what, dude? Today's episode 33. And if I say dude one more time through this entire thing, then we're going to have to scratch this episode. So I won't say dude anymore, except for I just did. But you know what, you guys? I'm saying dude for a reason because we have this dude on. His name is Ahmed. And this guy is doing such great things right now in the development space. I mean, he's got $300 million worth under contract right now. Actually, I think even more than that, man. And he's building stuff, 300 units, like all over the place. He's in multiple different cities, states even. And what's great about this episode, you guys, is he breaks down development in a way that is tangible and it's digestible, or for like people like myself that don't know much about this to really understand it. Right, Rafa?
Yeah, dude, it was absolutely amazing. Like really, really good episode in terms of like understanding the way he explains and just when he goes into detail of what those steps are for anybody who wants to get into any sort of development, whether it's a large scale project or a small scale project, and a lot of mindset too. Dude's mind is really, really like legit. Like I really liked it. It was a good conversation. And yeah, I think he was like close to $500 million in development, dude, which is nuts. And he's all to himself. Like he does it all himself. It's all his family business himself, which is crazy, dude. So I'm excited to get this episode. It's one of those that I'm definitely going to re-listen to because I took absolutely no notes. And at the end of it, I was like, crap, I got to go back and write everything down that he said. So I'm excited. Hopefully you guys enjoy this episode.
Yeah, and you know what? We apologize. There was just about 17 dudes in this intro, and Rafa, you definitely said way more dudes than I just did. So that's on you, bro.
Did I? Damn it. I didn't even catch that. Gosh darn it. Dude. All right, guys. I hope you enjoy the episode. Leave a comment below. We love you all.
Ahmed, what's going on, man? I'm super excited to have you on. You and I actually met probably, and Rafa, I met you guys probably all around the same time back in 2020, I think, when COVID hit and nobody was allowed, or not allowed, but nobody was going anywhere. Everybody was kind of hanging out and good old Clubhouse popped out. And that's where I've actually connected and met a crap ton of people, including you, Ahmed, and Rafa, which here we are sitting 2 years later, have our own podcast together. So, dude, let's talk about that for a second, Ahmed. I know that you're a real estate developer. Let's talk in your backstory, man. Give us a little bit about yourself, where you were brought up, where you were raised, what you're kind of a little bit of what your upbringing was like, and then we'll dive into the whole real estate situation. So if you want to break that down for all our listeners.
Yeah, well, good, guys. Thank you for having me. We've always chatted in the past, but we've never really jumped on and did this officially. So it's good to actually connect with you guys and catch up with you guys. Fairly simple, born and raised in Southern California, like a lot of us here in the San Gabriel Valley, Los Angeles area. Then I'm out here in the Inland Empire, hoping to move down to Orange County pretty soon, where it's a little nicer, a little cooler, closer to the beach. So hopefully by the end of the year, I'll be down there in Orange County. But born and raised in Southern California, went to college here, grew up middle class, nothing special. And just, after college, during my graduation of timing at college, I was looking for a career to get into. My professor suggested, connecting with some of his colleagues in the commercial real estate business. Looked interesting to me. I always liked real estate. I always liked construction. I always liked development and all those aspects related to it. And I was hired as a commercial real estate broker for CB. I was known as CB Richard Ellis at the time. CBRE is what it's called now. It's a very, very large international commercial real estate brokerage firm. So I was pretty much the first one hired into their new training program. Spent a few years with them brokering. Was able to do some sizable deals and learn a lot there. And really kind of refined maybe it's a superpower of spotting deals. Like maybe I wasn't the best closer, maybe I wasn't the best follow-up guy, maybe I wasn't the best transaction coordination guy, but I was always really, really good at spotting a deal. I was, every day I'd come back from driving out and cold calling and doing stuff, and I'd just have deal after deal after deal because I would see things that most people weren't able to see in terms of those transactions or opportunities. So I was able to refine my skill sets at finding deals. Spent time with them, got hired, left them, got hired by a friend to run and manage his construction company, building large-scale commercial projects. We would be building buildings at the Port of Long Beach and the Port of LA. We'd be building colleges and universities. We'd be building high schools and performing arts center. I was hired as a pretty much general manager of that construction company, and I learned how to build large-scale projects in a team environment, with other project managers, other contractors, other subcontractors, because projects of this size required a very large team. Sometimes you'd have 200, 300, 400 people on a job site at any one time. And it took a lot of coordination and scheduling and understanding. So I was able to learn that. And along the way, was always buying and investing in real estate in a business my father and I started about 17 years ago. And now I have taken that business that we started investing in and developing a little bit, and have now moved it into the forefront of my business. And I am solely focused on growing and expanding that investment and development side of the business right now. So always been in real estate, one aspect or another, but 100% focused on investment and development at this time.
What size deals or what size projects? I'm sorry, not deals. What size projects are you guys developing?
Right now, it falls into two categories. I've been working with a business coach for a while now, Kent Clothier, if you know him. He's pretty large in the real estate business, and he's been coaching me and helping me refine my business. So right now, that business falls into two buckets. It's either large-scale development projects, 80 to 100 units of multifamily apartments or townhomes minimum for rent. So it would be projects that I have here in Riverside, California, 300 apartments, 150 apartments. Projects I have out in Dallas, Texas, 300 units, 100 units, stuff like that. So it either falls into the large-scale multifamily and townhome development of 80 to 100 units minimum, or it falls into a smaller category, which is 1 to 5 acre industrial commercial development, where I go out and buy small lots, infill lots, and build small industrial commercial projects on them, small warehouses, small distribution buildings, small R&D buildings, and put those up as a for sale product, because those do not fit in the long-term model of the apartments and multifamily stuff and the townhomes of long-term investment, but these are the short-term in-between type projects that I will attack and tackle and take on to fund the larger projects.
Okay, let me ask you a question. As far as your development projects, now you kind of answered it a little bit with what you were just explaining. But when you're building like these small like communities, do you sell them off, or is it just do you do it for yourself, or are you doing it for like other investors who need like a builder to come in and build like an apartment complex?
So right now it's all for myself, right? So I am the head of the family business right now, which is a family-owned investment development company that I run and manage. And what we do is the large-scale multifamily product, the apartments, the townhomes, and all those other large-scale projects that are for rent, we keep those into a portfolio for the long-term generational wealth, right? And the cash flow and the appreciation and the depreciation from that type of property. The smaller ones that are the small industrial commercial properties, the small industrial buildings, the small warehouse buildings, the small parks, those are built to be for sale, because that sale dollars will go back and fund the larger projects that stay in the portfolio for 10, 20 plus years. And then building for other people at the moment, I do not build for anyone else at the moment. I got way too much on my plate right now to go out and do that further. I got currently at this moment somewhere between $350 and $400 million of development projects that I control that are going through the planning, entitlement phases, and certain aspects of pre-construction.
Wow.
So right now my hands are pretty full. Yeah, it's and I'm growing. But if I want to continue to grow and expand at the rate that I'm doing it right now, it's inevitable that will be bringing in some outside investments. I would like to have some friends and some people I know who are in the investment business to invest with me, because I like to do business with people I like, people I know, people I trust. So if I'm looking to grow and expand, it's only inevitable that I will bring in some outside capital as well in the near future. I'm anticipating bringing in outside capital within 24 to 36 months from now. So pretty soon, because if I keep going at this pace, I can only sustain so much of it myself before I need to start, bringing in some outside dollars.
I love that. I got a ton of questions. So number one, I guess, as far as the permitting process, I guess is my main question here. How big of a difference or how big of a challenge is it when you're doing large scale development for commercial in comparison to like a small ADU or something like that?
Small projects like an ADU or a home addition or maybe even a new home on a lot are a lot easier to get done because most of the time the land, the neighborhood, the area has already been approved for that type of build. So let's say you find a residential single family home lot surrounded by a bunch of existing single family. Well, we already know that that lot is already zoned for single family. We already know that the city will allow a single family home there and an ADU because it's already in the zoning code. It's already permitted by right. So all you have to do is get your plans, submit them, make sure they're within all the guidelines and building standards of that city, and they will approve it through the planning department on an administrative approval because it's already zoned, it's already allowed. So all you have to do is follow the rules and they'll approve it. You could have something like that done within 12 months. It would be sooner, but cities are really slow now and everyone's working from home and everyone has an excuse why things go slow. On the larger projects that I'm working on, like say the 300 units out in Riverside, that will take a couple of years just to get a shovel in the ground because you have to deal with community groups, you have to deal with zoning changes, you have to deal with large scale development reviews, you have planning commissions, you have city councils, you have fire departments, you have Native American wildlife studies, you have environmental studies, you have noise studies, traffic studies, lighting studies. And a million other things that you need to go through the process of mitigating before you even get an approval. So that's why these larger projects take a long time because there's so many people involved, so many departments involved, so many outside reports needed, so many steps that you need to take to get there. And there's no way of doing it fast. Even if you did do it fast, you're still at the mercy of the planning department. You're at the mercy of the city council. You're at the mercy of the community. You're at the mercy of the police and fire departments, which want to review your access and feasibility for them to get in and out. You're at the mercy of so many other people that it makes these large projects a lot longer to get done just because there's so many things outside of your control.
Okay, that sounds like a long waiting period. How does that work in terms of like the monetary side of things? Like when you're funding these deals and you're getting started, like how much does it typically cost to get these permits going? And what's the risk of you not getting these permits passed and losing that money?
Well, it can go either way. You know what I mean? So like I said, on a small single family home or a duplex or fourplex that's already approved, it's pretty easy. You're getting in, you're getting plans and permits and everything done. Say you're all in for $40,000-$50,000 by the time you get a permit and you can, turn the dirt on a small project. The large projects are time consuming, but it's the long game. Real estate investment is the long game. The only thing difference about building a property and buying a property is you're skipping a step. You're skipping the acquisition process. You're skipping the competition. You're skipping the underwriting and looking for the project, right? You're skipping that step and you're going straight to the construction and ownership, meaning it takes you longer to get there, but you are skipping that step. And then you are creating value through the process. You create value through the change of zoning. You create value through the entitlement because a piece of land by itself and a piece of land that's approved for 300 apartment units has a much different value. So you create value along the way. So you're actually adding to the value through that process. But, one project I have right now that my father and I, he's passed recently, but we've been working on for 7, 8, 9 years, and we're probably $1 million, even $1.5 million into the process because we've had a lot of problems with the design, problems with the city, problems with legal, problems with lawsuits, things like that. So we're easily $1 to $1.5 million into a project. And we haven't even put a shovel in the ground yet. But these are some of the things that do happen because the larger projects, you have a lot more obstacles. So you got to make sure you're prepared for these types of things. You got to make sure you got thick skin. You got to make sure you're ready to go. But at the same time, the value that's being created for that large project far outseeds the money that has been spent already. It far outseeds the money you have to put down and wait for 12 to 24, 36 months before you start construction because your return on your investment should include that downtime. It should include the time and effort you put into it for the first 12 or 24 months until you get a permit. So when you underwrite a project, a development project, make sure you underwrite the downtime, you underwrite the plans, the permits, the consultants, you underwrite the 12 or 24 months before you even start construction, you underwrite that cost of capital. So things like that you need to take advantage of and make sure you underwrite it correctly, because you don't want to get into a project and all of a sudden you finish your construction and it doesn't make economic sense because you didn't underwrite that time of the planning, the permits, the architecture, the city council, the planning department, all that time it takes to get into the development. You didn't underwrite it for it. So you always got to make sure you underwrite for that.
Yeah. Ahmed, so did you really learn a lot of this stuff because you started from the ground up? Like, you didn't just jump right into development right away. You started off in project management, right? That's kind of what you were talking about a second ago.
Yeah, it's pretty much started out in commercial real estate, representing buyers and sellers and developers of commercial properties here in the Southern California area, right? So you don't really learn this stuff in a book, even though I can teach you, or you can take one of my courses and I can teach you. A lot of it is learned from being in the field. A lot of it is learned from observing other people. A lot of it is learned from actually being a part of the process. So I can go and teach it to you, but what really connects is when you actually get out there, when you walk into the planning department with a piece of paper and say, "Hey, I want to build this on this property. What do I need to do?" That's the learning experience, because that's when they're going to say, "Here's your checklist. Here's your needed documents. Here's what you're going to need to give us." Right. So I can teach that, but it really, really makes sense when you start putting it into practice. Right. So I'll give you all the bullets you need for your gun, and you'll be fully armed, but you won't really know when and how to fire that gun until you get into the process of developing a property.
I love that analogy.
Yeah. There's so many things like that, man. Like, even when we talk about short-term rentals, like, people talk about it all day, but like, you actually have to just do it. You have to get started. We can give you the tools and the checklists and all that other shit that comes along with getting started. But if you don't actually get out there and do it, it doesn't do anything for you. Like, you have to, put exercise behind that. So take us through your first deal. So you did the project management stuff, and we have a lot of people that come on that do that. They learn like that ground level up. And those are usually the people that are super successful. They start off just basically exactly what you said, observing everybody, taking like a, residency or an internship where they just learn from somebody. So walk us through your first deal when you came in. Like, I'm talking like ground level. Somebody listening to this today can listen to you talk and be like, okay, cool. I get the fundamentals now of, investing in this type of environment. So like, what's something that somebody can go in right now and just look at, like something you talk about in your course or something like the very beginning onset?
I'll give you the rundown of a property I just went in escrow on last week. How about that? Because that's the most relevant one, and people can do.
Perfect.
So, from time to time, I jump on the MLS, I jump on the AIR, I jump on LoopNet, all these different listing sites, just to see if there's anything that comes up. Usually, everything that's on there has been passed over by a lot of people, unless you're really creative and you know how to make something work. So I was looking for dirt sites, redevelopment sites, anything that's on the market, anything that's changed. Like, I try and keep tabs on the market here where I am in the Southern California, Inland Empire, Orange County areas. I want to see what's going on. Any new opportunities have come up, anything online, read the news articles, whatever it is. So I came across this 1 acre site here in the Inland Empire recently. And I'm like, I've never seen this before. How, it's been on the market a couple months. Why haven't I seen it before? So I called my broker buddy, because I have a lot of friends that are still brokers, and I still like to have them represent me in the business because they're in it a lot more than I am, right? I'm a little bit removed from the brokerage side of the business, so I always have them represent me because they know exactly what has to be done, how to be done. They have the resources, and they are boots on the ground that is desperately needed. So I call him, I've never seen this before. What's going on with it? He's like, yeah, me too. So he calls the broker. He's like, it's still in escrow. Don't know why it's online or why it's showing the way it is, but we'll follow up. I'm like, okay, follow up, because I like the piece. He calls me back next week. He's like, it's falling out of escrow. Do you want to take it? I'm like, let's take it full price, all cash, get as much due diligence as you can, but we'll take the property. So it fell out of escrow. I jumped on it because, one, I know the area. I know the surrounding properties. I know the surrounding developments. I know the surrounding economics of the neighborhood. I know the city. I know the access. I know everything about that area. So I'm like, I like the area. The project would be a little bit challenging because the site is not like a nice square or rectangle or something like that. But with a good architect, you can come up with something pretty good. And for the price I was paying for it, it was a good price. So we jumped on it, got it in escrow, and I believe I got 90 days due diligence. So it's not what I prefer. I prefer at least 6 to 9 months, but I only got 3 months on this one. I think it's because it was smaller. They wanted to get rid of it. And I think within the 90 days, I can go to the city and really have the conversations I need to make sure I can go through with the project. So I'm in an escrow on it. And by the day I opened escrow, I already had a meeting with the city planning department to say, hey, we got this property. I already had an architect sketch up a preliminary site plan for it because I knew what I can do on the property, and I knew what the city pretty much wanted, and I knew what it was zoned for, and I wasn't going for any sort of zone change or variance or change. I just wanted to go and put on that piece of property exactly what was allowed because I didn't want to go through all that headache. I wanted to get in and get out as fast as possible. So I had a meeting with the city, brought them the sketch. They gave me their initial, napkin, back of the napkin, take notes type of response. Say, yeah, we like to see this. We don't want to see this. We want this. You'll have to double check with that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, okay, good. So everything they told me, I already kind of knew and I felt good about. So it allows me to continue on with that process. So now I'm engaging the architect to come in with full drawings, and I'm already scheduling with the city a preliminary review meeting where the city and other city staff and other departments will come on and get on a Zoom call with you and go over that, more updated, more complete plan that you're trying to do. Because the city will say, before you even get deep into the weeds of spending money for applications and reviews and stuff like that, we want to make sure that what you're submitting to us is already on the level of what we're looking for, because we don't want you to come in with a rocket ship when we know the only thing we're going to allow is a car, so we're going to, get you on board first. So that's where I'm at with that. So I put $25,000 of a deposit for the piece of land. It's going to cost me $1 million to buy. I have the cash to buy it all cash, or I can go get financing from a lender for it. It all depends on however you want to work it out. And I'm going to continue with that process of building probably a 12 to 15,000 square foot mixed use type R&D industrial building that would apply itself towards smaller and light industrial distribution uses or small R&D tech type companies, the kind of the buildings you see that are, 3, 4, 5, 6 different businesses in one building. They have some roll up doors in the back. They have a real nice entry in the front. And it's a good incubator, new business startup type of space. And I know it'll go really well in that neighborhood, in that market, because I know it pretty well.
Okay, so how complex do your initial plans have to be when you first go to the city? Because that was one of my questions. And you said once you got that first initial yes, that napkin scratch that you were talking about, then you said you went back and got an architect to do the actual plans. So those first initial set of plans, like how do those look?
So you can do it in two ways, right? You can either hire an architect to say, hey, can you do a quick sketch on here to come up with something where you can maximize this property? Because we're always talking about the highest and best use, right? So if the highest and best use for this property is a light industrial R&D building, I'm going to do that. Now, the next thing is, how do we maximize the square footage to get the largest building we can on this property, to maximize our return on investment? Because we got to take into account, hey, I want to put as big of a building on this property as possible, but I need to make sure I have enough parking. I have the access, I have the landscaping, I have the setbacks. So these are things that you got to go jump on the city website, look at the planning department and say, zone, light industrial zone. Okay, here we go. And the next thing it says, okay, light industrial needs to have a 20-foot from the street landscape buffer between the building and the street. Okay, good. We'll make sure whatever building we put is 20 feet back off the street. Next thing it says, if you're going to do light industrial, they're going to want to see one parking space for every 500 to 1,000 square feet of building. So if I have 15,000 square feet of building, I may have to have at least 30 parking spaces. So I'm going to have to figure out how to configure that building to get 30 parking spaces. I'm going to have access. I need to have setback from the neighbor. All this stuff is in the planning department. And you can go online and you can read all of this stuff. And so you either give that to the architect and say, hey, Mr. Architect, I need you to come up with a building. I'll pay you $500. You can go on Fiverr, you can go on connect with any architect, or architectural student off of Craigslist. Anyone that can, even yourself, you can draft it up with some drafting programs, right? That you can get online, and you just need to come up with a basic understanding of what you can fit on there, right? And when you do, you take it into the city. Hey, we're interested in doing a building like this. You can see we have enough parking. You can see our setbacks seem to be pretty correct. You can see that we're trying to build a building that will be in conformity with the rest of the neighborhood. A lot of times I'll bring a board of pictures that I've got off the internet, like pictures off of Pinterest and pictures off of Google and pictures of this and this and this of what I'm expecting to build, because I want them to see that I'm trying to build this really architecturally cool, awesome, modern looking building that is laid out this way, and I want it to look like this, and this is what I'm going to be proposing. Because a lot of the time, the city, they don't want to see the same old thing. Oh, it's another box. It's another plain house. It's another boring building, et cetera, et cetera. If you come with them with a story and an idea that they want to see, they're going to be a lot more receptive to what you want to do, right? So I'm like, hey, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to look cool. This is how I build, because I want things to be built and that I build to represent me. And I want people to remember this is the design, because we took into account the parking, the setbacks, the landscape, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is what we're thinking about doing. So it really doesn't take too much to get that going. You can even do it yourself, or you can hire somebody maybe for a few $100 to come up with a pretty nice layout and site plan for you.
You answered a ton of my questions there, so technically, just to summarize it, you can basically find like images of something that you're going to be similar to, draft a quick plan, something simple, not to the detail, just to see if they'll approve that. Once they say yes, then you come in with actual measurements to do all the actual planning site or moving forward. I love that. Thanks for explaining that. So
one trick that I teach a lot of people, and it's not exactly the best thing to do, but if you really want to just get a quick understanding of what you can put on that piece of dirt. So say you find a single family residential piece of land, right? You're like, oh, it's a good price, nice neighborhood. I'm interested in pursuing it. You could go online and Google home architectural plans, and they sell you these plans for $800, $1,200. You see them everywhere. And look for a plan that has the same square footage or the same length and width that would fit onto your land, and say, okay, this would fit. No, that won't fit, but this will fit. Oh, this will fit, but that will fit. So you can even take that into the city and say, hey, I'm kind of interested in something like this. It is not going to be this, but here's the gist of it, right? And if they say okay and you like it, you buy the plans online, or if not, you just have your architect recreate something similar. But it gives you a good understanding of what you can do.
I love that. I'm actually looking to build an ADU in the back of my parents' house. I'm going to take everything you're telling me right now and just do something similar. Obviously, it's not as large scale, but similar concept. So, Ahmed, let me ask you a question really quick. How do the holding cost, like what kind of holding costs are you looking at with the piece of land? Because if you're paying it out of pocket and you don't do obviously if you do a loan, then you're looking at holding costs for the loan. But is there anything else on top of that you're like looking at that people have to account for that they don't think about?
Yeah, definitely. When you buy a piece of land, you got to remember it's going to get reappraised at your purchase price, right? So the taxes will go up. So your property tax, no matter what, that's going to get reappraised at the purchase price. And if you're holding that land for 1 or 2 years before you can actually start building on it, God forbid it's that long. Hopefully you can do it a lot sooner. Is you got to make sure you got that tax money, right, to pay that property tax, right? And then holding costs. Are you getting a loan on it? Maybe you're getting a loan at 6, 7, 8% at 50% loan to value. You got to take that into account. If you have the cash to buy it, you're taking the cash out of the bank or out of some other investment, remember, the bank is giving you less than 1% if it was cash, right? So if you take that cash out of the bank and you put it into a property, you better make sure that property is appreciating, or you're adding value much more than that 1%, right? So there's different ways of looking at it. Like me, if I buy a piece of property, day one, I'm looking for every opportunity I can to increase the value of that property, because I need it to at least outpace inflation or outpace whatever sort of return that I would have that money in somewhere else, right? So if the land is going up in value naturally because of the economy, that's great, because it's doing that right now. It's happening everywhere. If the value of that land is going up because I'm getting the approvals and the entitlements approved from the city to build on that property, that's value to the land right there. So from day one, I'm looking for any opportunity I can to increase the value of that land, because the way I look at it is, if things go bad, I buy a piece of land and it goes bad, and I got to get rid of the land, or I got to exit it, or I got to get rid of it. I want to be able to know that I can sell that land for exactly what I paid for it or more. I do not want to go into anything where I have a potential of losing maybe even a little bit of money. I don't even want to deal with that. I want to make sure I'm buying at a rate or a price that I know that if something hits the fan, I can exit, sell it, and come out even. That's my philosophy on that. So it's worked out for me pretty well. It's not like, hey, I'm buying this piece of land, I am rolling the dice on the development, and if things don't happen, I'm stuck and I'm going to lose a bunch of money. That's not the way I work.
So you got to make very educated like decisions when you get started on this, especially with like the way so I mean, long story short, you got to really know the area, because you got to understand how that property is going to perform, whether you do something on it or not, right?
You got to be strategic, right?
Yeah.
Should be strategic. And another thing that I teach a lot is take the emotion out of your decision making process, right? A lot of the classes or a lot of the speaking engagements that I have is, you got to remember, investment and development is not your home. You're not making decisions based off if it makes you feel happy. It doesn't matter if you're making a decision off of, I want to make sure the kitchen window looks out on my garden and I get a lot of sun in the morning. When it comes to investment and development, it's purely about the market. It's purely about your return. It's purely about what you need to do to maximize your return on your investment. I had this conversation recently with a friend of mine on his podcast, and we're talking about that house in Beverly Hills that just sold for $30 or $40 million, right? It was originally on the market for like $120 million. It was like 1,000 feet long, and it's all glass and concrete on the top of the hill, and it was beautifully, architecturally amazing, beautifully house, right? And they were asking for 100 million, $120 million. No buyers, no buyers, no buyers. Finally went to auction. It sold for like $30 million off that 100 million, $120 million price. Why? Because it did not fit the market. It fit a very individual type buyer. Meaning, when you build something and when you invest in something, or you want to get into that business, you got to make sure you're building for the market. You're not building for yourself. If you want to build for yourself, that's fine. You just better expect to keep it or live in it for the rest of your life. But if you're building for the market, for resale, for rent, for whatever it may be, for an exit, make sure you build something that the market demands. So that's why my projects, I want to be architecturally cool, but I don't want to be too wild. I want to my multifamily projects, I try to go with Spanish Mediterranean resort type properties, because those types of look and those architecture will last forever. People will always want that type of property, especially here in Southern California. You go down to Cabo and you see the resorts, they open up, and the pool and the ocean is behind them, and the palm trees and the white, the white stucco and the Spanish tile roofs. That architecture will be around forever. People will always love that type of architecture. But these big glass and concrete buildings that are, architecturally cool, they're only relevant for the very few. So always, always, always build with the market in mind and with the clientele in mind, and not for yourself.
So, I live in SoCal, so I live in Orange County, and my family lives out there in the IE. So I'm curious, if you don't mind me asking, like, where around are your places? And I guess that's the first question, because I have another one. Well, I mean, I have a ton.
So my big project right now in Riverside is off the 91 freeway in La Sierra. I got 10 acres out there, 300 apartment units. We're working on the plans for that right now. Was put on hold recently because we are redoing the market study to see if we are building towards a senior product, which is 55 plus active senior, apartments, or we're going to just do it strictly market rate apartments for anyone, because that project got held up for a few years because of COVID, because of a lawsuit, and a few other things. So I want to make sure that when we do reapply and put in new plans to the city for approval, that I am building something that is relevant for today's market and not a market for 5 years ago, right? I got a property in Dallas, Texas, just north of Dallas, in a city called Anna. It's 80 acres. We're building 300 townhomes. I have a partner out there on that, and that's moving 10 times faster than any project I have here in California, just because the political environment's different out there. So I got stuff in Riverside, Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga. I got Menifee. I got Moreno Valley. I got Dallas, Texas, and I got Cedar Hill, Texas as well. So a bunch of stuff, plus some existing stuff out there in Phoenix.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I used to live right off of La Sierra, so I know exactly where that's at.
Yeah, right next to the Ralphs.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, the lending side. So like obviously now you have the cash because you've been doing this for quite some time now. But like somebody new coming in, I mean, that initial cost can be intimidating. So what would you feel would be the best opportunity for somebody coming in that could be a lender? Like what do you typically look for, or what would be your thought process now starting off? Say you're able to you have somebody like me in my situation where I got several single family homes, but eventually I want to get into development. I want to do what you're doing at some point, but specifically, strictly, or maybe even kind of going into the short-term space or even the midterm space, or obviously be able to diversify the portfolio in that specific thing, which I want to ask you in a little bit why, or if you do have short-term rentals. But getting into the lending side, what would that look like? What would be the easiest scenario? Can you break that down for us?
So this is another great question. Really good question. I put this out on my reels recently, and if I had to start fresh, if I had to start brand new all over again, I would be in the 2 to 4 unit development space, right? I'd be building duplexes to fourplexes all over the place. Anywhere I can get a piece of dirt that would lend itself for a duplex or fourplex or anything in between, I would be all over it. Whether it was tearing down an existing single family that was all beat up, but it was zoned for something more, or it was buying something that is going to be upzoned in the near future. Anything that would allow me to do a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, I'd be all over it. And the reason why is, one, it's still considered single family, right? So you're able to get loans and development money a lot easier and a much higher loan to value than you could for a commercial project, right? There's a lot of programs out there to help you get the money to either buy, invest, or to even develop these types of properties, right? Even for a couple percent down, because it's still considered single family, right? Number two, there's always going to be a market for renters, right? Especially with the interest rates rising, less people could afford to buy, less people could afford the new monthly payment. So they're going to have to go back and rent for another year or two and save up more money before they can buy again. So it's going to create even more rental demand. So small units for rent will always be an opportunity. And three, you'll always have a huge amount of buyers. So if you needed to sell for whatever reason, the amount of buyers for a 4-unit fourplex somewhere, it far exceeds the number of buyers that want to buy 400 units at the project down the street, right? Every doctor, lawyer, entrepreneur, person who saved up money over the years would be dying to buy a fourplex because they all want to get into real estate. So might as well build what the market is demanding. And right now that market demand is people want to invest in real estate. They don't have a whole lot. And how can they get in easily? It's duplex, triplex, fourplexes. So if that was the case, I'd be building those all day long, anywhere I can find a piece of dirt for something like that.
So I'm going to break down a scenario for you and I. I just found a deal near where I'm at. It's an old home built in 1914. Ruff, I sent you the thing where we actually put an offer on it, a cash offer on it. It's 200 grand. And it's an old ass building, man. Like it needs to be brought down to the studs and rebuilt. So there's two things that are going on with this, and this is one of the reasons why I'm kind of picking your brain live right here. Obviously, as we're having this. First off, it's a duplex, but it's the city still has it as a single family with no. It's so old that they recorded it as a single family. It doesn't have a duplex side. So A, is that hard to get permitting for that? And B, it's a big ass lot. So listening to you talk right now, Rafa, my strategy for that place changed. Instead of even doing a duplex on that, we could probably even stretch it out and make it like a fourplex. So now is something like that hard to do if it's already, set like that?
So a couple things you want to look at, and I can help you with this offline after the call if you want. Is one, it's a duplex, but it's still considered single family. So it could be existing non-conforming with the city. It could be actually grandfathered in. It's kind of something you got to take a look at when you get to the city, because if you're going to do a renovation, you're going to have to pull permits. When you pull permits, you're going to take a look at your existing use, right? So it's something you need to look into. Number two, if the lot is big, you can always build a couple more units in the back, right? As long as you hit those development code requirements. So if it's an ADU, make sure you follow those requirements. If you can do 2 to 4 units back there, even better. And you can really check that out by jumping on the planning department's website and looking at the existing zoning, right? So the existing zoning may be single family and maybe R1.5, where you can get a couple more units in the back. You'd have to check that out. Another thing to look at as well is cities across California are now required to add more density. The state of California is requiring cities to add housing numbers to keep up with the influx of demand that we have here in California. Now, it's not up to the city to make sure that these new units are built. The city only has to provide the opportunity to build these units. So the city can go and rezone a bunch of land for more density, more units, and they've been doing that. But there's no guarantee that the owners or developers will build those units. The city is only required to make sure it's available. So it's up to guys like you, Jesse and Rafa, to go out and get the land and to take advantage of that new density that the city has rezoned the land for. So that property you're looking at, it may be in the process of getting rezoned. It may have an overlay that says you're allowed to add a few more units. You're not really going to know until you go down and you talk to the city and say, hey, what are the options? What's coming in the future? What do you guys have planned for the area? And what are the things you're working on? I got a project down in Newport Beach. I can probably get 50 to 70 condos or apartments on it, right? It's not zoned. It's not zoned multifamily mixed use yet. It's still zoned commercial. But since the city is going through this upzone and change in density, that property within 12 to 18 months is going to have a new zoning that I don't even have to change myself. The city's going to do it for me. And all I got to do is, once the zoning is changed, submit my plans and build my building. So a lot of cities are doing this. You just got to go and do the homework and find out what are those areas that are getting the new zoning, the upzoning, the higher densities, and go take advantage of those areas.
And people can just Google that. Like they can just check online when those changes are coming up.
Yeah, a lot of cities have it online in the planning department, because the planning department has a general plan that they change every 10 years, right? And they also have a housing element that goes along with that, meaning a lot of these um, cities will put out their housing element plan and updates, which show all the new zones, all the changes in density, all the areas that they're looking at adding more residential units to keep up with the state of California and the demands that the state puts on each and every city. And you can go to the state of California. You can type in state of California regional housing allocation needs list, and that will tell you what each city is required to do. And then you can go to your local city or communities that you're familiar with and go on their planning department website and say, hey, take a look. A lot of times they will have a report that their, city housing density upgrade or upzone. Or if not, you just call the planning department and say, hey, what's going on with, your density and your upzoning? Is there a map or something I can take a look at? And they will say, yeah, go here on the website. Or they say, yeah, it's not on the website, but it's here at the planning department on the counter. You can come down and take a look at it. We haven't implemented it yet, but we're going through the process, and it will be implemented in 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is. So there's different ways of finding that information out.
Got it. Yeah, that's so useful. I'm sitting here writing. I mean, my notes are like freaking out of control right now from everything you're saying. So everybody listening right now, make sure you have your notepads out, because this guy's
Yeah.
dropping some really good information. It's cool, man, because we get people on here that talk about stuff, and they don't break it down in terms where it's like the average person can listen to it and actually conceptualize it and take actionable steps behind it. So I appreciate you kind of laying that stuff out, especially as Rafa and I are kind of venturing into this now. My goal is to always get like to what you're doing, to eventually do a development. Like I want to be able to look at stuff eventually. So I know you kind of talk about that. I want to derange too much of the conversation. So Rafa, do you have anything to say right now before I kind of jump into the development stuff?
No, I'm just curious as to why, Ahmed, why development instead of buying value add properties that are already upstanding?
Well, I'm always in the market for value add. Trust me, I am. I do not turn down anything if it comes. It don't make dollars if it don't make sense, right? So if a value added multifamily property in an area that I want to be in comes my way, I will definitely go after it, right? But at the same time, I'm also competing against how many other guys to go after that property, and I go after 100 plus units. So 100 plus units, it's a lot less in terms of the competition, but it's a lot more fierce because now I'm dealing with the Wall Street guys, the hedge funds, the syndications, all that kind of stuff, right? And a lot of people don't know, but the Black Rocks and the Wall Street guys who I'm competing against, they're getting their money a lot cheaper than I am, meaning their underwriting is a lot tighter than my underwriting is. So if I'm getting my loan at 4% or 5% from Bank of America or whoever it may be, the Wall Street guys are probably getting it straight from the Fed at 0 or 1% or whatever they want because they have those kind of relationships. So they're able to underwrite a project a lot more aggressively than I can, meaning they're allowed to pay more money for that project and get the same kind of return that I would getting a bank loan. So it gets pretty tough sometimes, right? How aggressive you want to be on these things. So that's why the value add is, I will never turn it down if the opportunity comes my way. But because of the amount of competition and the rates and the kind of money that the Wall Street guys get to throw out these types of properties, it's a lot easier for me to circumvent that and go straight to the development part, and I avoid all that competition. Even though it takes longer to do, I'm still avoiding a lot of competition.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the Wall Street guys and all those other things. I mean, that's a whole other animal to kind of get into.
How do you compete? Let's say there's 300 units you want to buy in Phoenix, and you're like, hey, that's a nice project. There's some value add to it. It's something I want to pursue, and I got to underwrite, my bank loan at 3 or 4% or whatever it may be, and the Wall Street guys are underwriting their money at 0 or 1 because one, they got a bunch of investors that are getting it straight from the Fed. How do you compete against that? It's really hard.
Yeah. So do you feel like you're getting like, picked over deals? Or are they kind of deals that you're like, that nobody saw the potential in, or they're, I mean, you kind of talked about that a second ago. So it's not like you're getting like the leftovers, right? You're finding deals still, still pretty good deals.
Yeah, the deals I find are pretty much a lot of the times I go out and look for myself because I kind of found out that's my superpower, right? I'm able to find or I'm able to see a deal or a good piece of dirt, right? Some people are really good at the underwriting. Some people are really good at the project management. Some people are really good at other aspects of it. My superpower is finding an opportunity. So if I get in the car and I drive or I jump on Google Maps and I go check out an area, I'm able to see the growth. I'm able to see where things are going. I'm able to see what's going to become valuable in the future. And it allows me to go and pursue some of these opportunities because I kind of see what's going to happen. It's not really a crystal ball, but it's kind of like a very educated decision based off of existing trends and stuff like that. Or if I see an old building or a piece of dirt or something in an area, I'm able to really think about it and say, hey, what's the highest and best use I can do with that? They're not maximizing this property or it's being picked over or people don't see what I see. Let me find a way to maximize the value of that property. And that's what I found out I'm pretty good at.
So are you looking at like the city trajectory over the next 5 years, new companies coming in, the growth in that specific city? Like what are like 3 factors that you're looking at when you're making these like intuition, this type of intuition or these guesses, or you feel like you already know it? Like you kind of already know what the next years are going to look like. So what are you looking at specifically?
Well, if it's an existing established city, you already kind of know what's going on, right? It's easy to figure out, hey, I'm in Irvine. I know exactly what's going on here. If there's an opportunity that presents itself, it's pretty easy to figure out, right? If I'm in Dallas or Phoenix, I'm looking at things that are different. I'm not competing with the guys who are going in downtown in the central core. I'm going to the outskirts, right? Because if it's going to take me 2 or 3 years to even get a project approved for development, I might as well find something that won't even be valuable or necessary for a couple of years, right? So I'm looking at the fringe. I'm looking at where things are going. I'm looking at employment trends. I'm looking at migration trends. I'm looking at businesses coming in the area. Then I'm also looking at public services and public works, freeways, off ramps, new traffic signals, new cities, new schools, anything that shows that they are anticipating more growth in an area, that is telling me that that's going to build up, right? So when I see a new off ramp or the freeway getting expanded, why are they doing that? They got millions and billions of dollars in their pocket. They know they have the ability to research and forecast. Caltrans and the DOT is going to do a much better job of forecasting traffic patterns and growth than I can ever do, right? So I just try and piggyback on those guys and say, what are they doing? What are the school districts doing? What are the cities doing? What are the big land developers who go out and buy 10 and 20,000 acres at a time? What are they doing? What do they say? Because I don't have that kind of research, but I do know that I can follow them. I can evaluate what they're doing. I can see what they're doing and then just use that to my advantage. So I'm definitely the kind of guy that looks on the fringe, because by the time I get ready to build something, that fringe will become valuable.
Yeah, totally, man. Do you feel like you're somebody that has a lot of patience?
Yes and no. It all depends. Like some things I'm like, I gotta have it right now, right now. But then when it comes to development, I know it takes time. But the thing is, I love building stuff. I love start from finish. I love working with architects. I love working with, planning departments. I love working with brokers and contractors and designers coming up with something that will be really cool. I love the process. So it kind of helps with my frustration of having to be patient, because the process is enjoyable for me too. But sometimes even I get, worked up and it's taken too long and it makes me crazy, but it's just part of the process.
Yeah, I think that coming to life of your thought, because I think that you can, and you're probably, and this is where I think that I want to get in development. You could probably look at a piece of land and in your head, you already see what it is. You kind of already envision yourself walking through the front door. You see what businesses
Yeah.
are going to be in there. You probably already see that. And I think that's something that like I have personally that it's just in me already. Like, and walk into somewhere and kind of see what it could potentially be. So having that come to life over the next 2 years or 3 years is probably so fulfilling that, once you kind of, you get to that tangible place that's there that you can touch, feel, and, that must be a pretty cool, rewarding feeling just to see that come to life.
Yeah. You always got to be, I got a couple of mentors out there. I'm, Andy Frisell is a big mentor. Ed Milet's a big mentor, and I like to learn from them. And something, Andy said, and I really, really subscribe to it. It really fits for me, is if you're going to fall in love with the destination, that's not going to work. You need to fall in love with the journey. You need to enjoy the journey. You need to continue to level up, because if you see a destination, that means you're limited. But if you never see the destination and you're just continuing on your journey, and you're fulfilled with that, that's even better, because once you hit your destination, you're done. I don't ever want to be done. I just want to continue to level up, level up, level up. You know what I mean? I want to be that guy that builds that big, resort down in Cabo one day, and that everybody wants to be a part of. That would be the thing. I have a friend who's building a hotel in Tulum right now, right? 100-unit boutique Marriott property, and he's building it. He's a developer, and I see that as the ultimate level up. Like, I want to have my resort hotel. My friend can do it, I can do it. But if I keep a destination in front of me, I'll never get there. I need to just continue to level up, and then one day I'll get there, and then I'll surpass it, and I'll keep going. I'll keep going. I'll keep going. But I just don't want to have a destination. I just want to continue on the journey.
So I have a quick question for you, Ahmed. What is it right now that's stopping you from doing that resort hotel out in Tulum or Cabo? Like, is there something that's holding you back?
Yes and no. I've been building this, rebuilding this machine over the last, 12 months. Like, I am reconfiguring this business from investing and developing and this and this and this into really, becoming the tip of the spear, right? Really narrowing down on what do I do best? What is the best, course for this business to take? What direction do we need to go into to be the most profitable and the most successful? So I've been doing a lot of that right now. And that also comes with building a team. So I need to have a team. I can only do so much myself. So building that team is also a whole other endeavor that I'm stressed out about, right? Finding the right project managers, finding the right superintendents, finding the right financial and underwriters, finding a CFO. These are things that you need to supplement you as you grow, because you can't keep doing that work yourself. You need to hand it off to the team. And if you don't have that team, you're never going to grow. So I'm struggling with that right now myself, is about building that really, really good team that they have your back, that they can carry the weight. They have the skill set to really support you and the business and the growth. So right now, once I get that in place, I know I'll be able to grow exponentially after that.
I love that. So, the I guess we're getting to the top of the hour, and I wanted to ask you one final question. I guess just give us a quick, brief answer, because it has to do with teams. How many people, like in your team? Well, I guess it's part of your team, but I was curious how many people you actually have in house for your business in terms of contractors, architects, or do you outsource all that work?
Right now, everything's outsourced, and that, it's good and it's bad, right? Project management. I'm sorry. The existing properties that we have are outsourced to property management companies. Architectural is outsourced to the architect. Contracting, everything else is outsourced right now, right? But in order for me to become very efficient, I need to start bringing a lot of that in house. So one of the major hires I'm going to be making here in the near future, probably in the next few months, is probably a very high end superintendent, right? And that superintendent needs to also have project management experience. He needs to not only know how to run the job site, but he also needs to know how to run the back end of the office, like the contractors, the billing, the payments, the inspections, and stuff like that. So he needs to keep the job site under control, but he also needs to keep the back end under control. So definitely a project manager with superintendent experience, or a superintendent with project management experience. So that's going to be definitely one of the biggest hires I'm going to have to make here, because that way I'm able to self-contract, right? I don't need to bring in a contractor for some of these small projects. Big project, different. The small projects, I can self-contract myself. I can save a bunch of money on that contractor profit by self-contracting, because I have the team in-house. I have the project manager and the superintendent who can do things. If he needs an assistant, I'll get him an assistant. If he needs someone to help him buy material and to negotiate and to analyze contracts, I'll get him somebody to help him. But I really need that high-end project manager, superintendent who could run 2, 3, 4, 5 small jobs at a time to really bring value to me and the business.
I love that. Okay, cool. Appreciate you. Yeah. So I guess, to respect your time, Ahmed, because man, I can go on this forever. Like, this is an awesome conversation. Um, we want to transition over to our segment where we ask our two questions. And the first one is, being that this is the Big Break Show, we want to know, what was your big break in terms of your business? What got you from old Ahmed to new Ahmed, right? Little business to big business, whatever it is, different mindset to, huge development mindset. What was that one thing that your defining moment, your big break?
This one's easy. It's easy to explain, but it's hard to do. But I think the majority of people have this in them, right? And if the majority of people could understand this, it will take them from here to here. And that big break was when I finally realized that I have a really bad case of a limiting belief, a limiting mindset. I have a huge scarcity mindset, not an abundance mindset. And the way I was able to understand that is, I looked back over my career over the last 20 years. And I said, okay, I worked here. I did all these big deals and made all these clients money. Then I worked here and I worked for my friend managing his construction business, and I made him tons of money. And then I look back and I look at the family business that I ran, and I made the family tons of money, right? All the while, I wasn't really doing it for myself. I was doing it for everyone else. And that was a scarcity mindset, because I had the mindset that I wasn't able to do this for myself. I was able to do it for everyone else, but I couldn't do it for myself. I was able to make all these different people millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, but I wasn't able to do it for myself. But then when I finally realized that I was the reason why they made the money, that was the switch. That was the switch. There is nothing different than making other people money than making yourself money, right? It's just that little sense of security that you have somebody to back you up when really you don't, because they're relied on you 100% to make them the money, right? So if you see a lot of companies keeping people down and not giving them promotions and not advancing their careers because they're so good at what they do, those are the people who can actually explode because they're so good, but the company keeps them there because they know how valuable they are. And that limiting mindset keeps them there. And once that light switch flips for them and they know, wow, I am the one that makes this thing happen. I am the engine. I am the one that makes all the money. I am the one that brings in all the opportunity. I'm the one that creates all the value. Once that light switch flips for that person, it'll take them from here to the moon in no time. So it was all about learning that limiting beliefs and that limiting mindset that I had, that I was like, wow, if I can do this for everyone else, I can easily do it for myself.
That's a great answer.
Did you always have that in you somewhere, or did it just like one day just pop up? Like, was it just like you woke up in the middle of the night and it just like, I'm doing this for everybody else? Or did you always have that mindset from the beginning and you just like you didn't really act on it?
I didn't act. I didn't even know I had it. I was told in the past by a friend of mine, like, he's like, I don't understand why you're doing what you do. You're the smartest, most capable guy I know. You should be making millions and millions and millions of dollars, but you're doing what you're doing. And I just kind of brushed it off, right? Because when you grow up and you're groomed and you're in an environment that doesn't push you to grow, they just leave you in as a machine. You know what I mean? As an engine, you're always going to just be the engine until someone pulls you out of that, or until you have that aha moment, right? Some people have the aha moment like I did. Some people need to be pushed and pulled and put into it and brought out of that. It doesn't matter. So I didn't even know it was in me until I started realizing that I'm what I was doing for everyone else, right? I had no idea. Other people saw it, but I didn't see it. So whether you pull someone out of that environment or you push yourself out of that environment, it doesn't matter. As long as you figure out that you are the machine that is making things happen for everyone else, you can now be the machine for yourself.
What's funny, Ahmed, is I'm kind of going through that right now. And I got to that point where, like, I don't know if you're familiar with what I do, but I take over full apartment complexes, small ones, right? 20, 30 units, and I convert them to short-term rentals. So I do the arbitrage model, and we talked about it a little bit. And I realized I'm doing this for other people and ending their vacancy and giving them higher rent and doing what I do. Why not be the one who owns the actual building and do it myself? And it took me a long time to figure that out, because to me it was always like, oh, I just want to do short-term rentals and make a lot of cash flow. But then I'm like, it's bigger than that. It's way bigger than that, right? And the way I got into it was joining these like big mastermind groups. Like now I'm in some masterminds that are like these dudes like you that are doing gigantic developments. They own thousands and thousands of doors, and I'm like, I can do what they're doing, and I can convert half that building into this. Like it was this whole limited belief system. So I appreciate you sharing that, man.
Yeah. No, it's all of this stuff that I do or other people do, these big projects or these big deals, whether they're small or big, there's no difference between me and you and Jesse. What we do is not rocket science. We're not scientists coming up with cures for cancer. What we're doing is we're checking off the boxes one by one to make sure our development, our investment works, right? And it's not rocket science. We just got to follow the process, follow the formula, take the same steps, make sure you do the same thing, and then you'll have success. It's not trial and error and scientific experiments and this and that. I mean, I can go build a house or an ADU, or I can go build a 100-story high rise. The steps are going to be the same, right?
Yeah.
There may be more steps, but they're not, some secret. You got to just check off the box one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. And by the time you get to the end of checking off all the boxes, you'll have a completed project.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think that puts things in context, for me, especially right now. And Rafa, I think we're kind of going through the same phase. So it's good to have people like you on, Ahmed, that talk to this. Like, I just got inspired by you talking about that right now, man. Like, even though it was, a few minutes talking, I get inspired about stuff like that, because really at the end of the day, we could do these things. We're not, you're absolutely right. We're not these rocket scientists or all these things, but we've been able to do what we've been doing and create something very sustainable and long term. And
Jesse, have you done a home edition, a bedroom bathroom edition, or what's the difference between adding a bedroom or two in a bathroom, plumbing, electrical, framing, roofing, etc.? What's the difference between that and building a whole duplex?
see, for me, in my mind, it's the amount of people that I need, the team that's going to need to be behind that.
Same team.
I tell Jesse all the time too, man. I'm like, dude, bro, like we can add, and he's like, no, dude, it's gonna be too much work, too much time. And I'm like, dude, no, it's the same thing. It's the same process. We talk about
It's
this
the
all the
same.
time. Like we have conversations about this all the time because it's both of ours and our limited beliefs and our mindset where we're like, I don't know if I can do that. And it's like, bro, we can totally do that. We just got to put one step forward. That's it.
100%. 100%. Yeah, it's just, what's the difference? I'm building a home addition or I'm building a new home. I still got framers, plumbers, architects, engineers, plans, and permits. It's just more of them, but it's still the same steps. You know, it's the same steps.
Yeah. I think for me, like, when I do like additions like that, it's usually like, it's not a GC, or if it is a GC, he's coming in doing one little thing and then bringing all these other little guys in that, are obviously getting paid lower. They're, so I think that's where, and it's hard to find, this, Ahmed, it's hard to find good qualified people to do stuff. I've had guys come in, do shitty jobs, had to fire people in between stuff. So it's like, I think that's where my brain goes, is like, I just don't have the network yet. Maybe that's what I need to do, was more networking with these contractors, to find them and to really find the good ones that have been around for quite some time. They can actually prove themselves. And I think that's what scares me a lot of time is
Sure. But that's just checking off a box, though. That's checking off evaluating and making sure you got the right team. It's just another check of the box you got to go after. I didn't say it's easy, to do. It takes time and effort, but it's not rocket science.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and break this. I appreciate you talking about that. So we're going to the segment now. It's learn and apply. So something that somebody learned today, an actionable step that they could take after listening to this episode or listening to it now, that they can go ahead and move into whatever they're going to do with their lives. But something that somebody can do today from listening to us talk, an actionable step.
I think something for you to take you on a journey from where you are to maybe an investor, developer, contractor, or whatever it may be, is to start learning your neighborhood, right? And what I mean by neighborhood is your city or your community or whatever it is that where you do business. And by doing that, you go to the planning department, go online, and look at the zoning maps and looking at the development code and reading those graphs and those tables and those bits of information that tell you what you can and cannot do and where you can and cannot do it, right? So when you start understanding that, then you really start understanding development, because you understand why they're building a bunch of warehouses here, but they didn't build warehouses there, and why they're building homes here, but they're not building apartments there. When you start understanding how the cities and communities start planning their areas and what they want to see, that will then in turn give you the ammunition you need to go out and start looking at opportunities and saying, hey, I know I can do this here, but I can't do that there. Why? Because I studied the zoning code, I studied the zoning maps, I studied the planning department requirements, et cetera, et cetera. I may not have done it before, but now I'm understanding some of the rules and regulations and the requirements and where I can and cannot do certain things. So I encourage people to start learning the zoning maps and the zoning code and the development code for the areas that they work in.
I'm doing that as soon as we get off this. No joke.
Yeah, it's fun. You like it, it's fun. Then you'll look at like, oh, where's my house? Oh, what do you know? My house actually has the ability to go to be a duplex now. You never knew, right? Or that piece of dirt down the street that you never thought much about now has the opportunity to be developed into a condo, put a condo map on it or build a couple units for sale. You never know. But when you start understanding the maps and the zoning and the codes and the development standards, then you start seeing the opportunities when you start driving around.
It's awesome, man. Good advice. Where can folks find you at, Ahmed? What's your handles?
Easiest place is Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time, where I waste a lot of my time is on Instagram. And it's Ahmed Builds Better. Simple.
Cool. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes and show description. So yeah, folks, Ahmed's got a really good channel. You must have just hired a social media manager probably maybe a couple months ago, because your stuff's starting to look really good, man. So if you guys aren't following Ahmed, you should. If you don't know this gentleman, you should. I expect to see him here with Grant Cardone in the next couple of years, shaking hands and making deals. So Ahmed's shaking his head. But yeah, guys, I appreciate you, Ahmed. Your story's been fantastic, man. I see so much. Obviously, you have a lot of stuff going on. The potential that you have is just astronomical, and you're making things happen in real life. He's got a course, folks, which I might be thinking about jumping in myself. So if you're looking at getting into the development stage, please shoot over to connect with Ahmed, jump into his course. And I like taking courses from people that are actually doing stuff now. And you just heard him talk about a deal that he just put in effect last week. And he's maneuvering through these things. So he's not a guy that's just coaching people that's already been there, done that. He's actually living, breathing, doing these things today. So everybody listening right now, please share and like this with anybody that you care about or love. I think this specific episode is going to do a lot for a lot of people. So Please share it. Ahmed, we appreciate you for being here, man. I appreciate your time. Rafa, any final words?
Nah, man, listen, this was an awesome episode. I really appreciate you coming on. This was really enlightening and very, very motivating and inspiring. So I'm gonna keep in touch, man. You're local, so
Anytime.
I'm gonna hound you, bro.
Hit me up.
Yeah, for sure.
Ahmed,
Yeah.
before you get off, I got one last thing. Are you going to turn any of your units into short-term rentals? Yes or no?
Yes, I am experimenting on that right now. Got a property in Phoenix, 172 units. I'm going through renovation on the property right now, and it's close to the hospital, a large hospital. So I am going to turn 2 or 3 of those into short term and to experiment to see how well they do. That market, that area doesn't have super high rents in terms of the short term rental. So it's going to be a coin flip, right, to see how well they do. But I'm going through that process right now.
I'm gonna put you in contact with someone who's operating in Phoenix that's doing really well out there.
Sure, that'd be great.
Thanks for coming on, buddy. Appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Next time. See ya.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it, man.